Is the Google Pixel 6a still worth buying in 2023? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, and this is the Google Pixel 6a. Now, for full disclosure, I am part of Team Pixel, and this device is a gift from Google, but all opinions expressed in this video are completely my own. Now, this device by no means is an old, outdated phone. In fact, the successor to this phone hasn't even been released yet, and the Pixel 6a was originally launched in July of 2022. Now, since then, quite a bit of time has passed, so I figured this video would be a good opportunity to kind of look back on this phone and reassess things. Now, fortunately, since being launched, the Pixel 6a has aged very well. This phone has continued to get a variety of different updates from Google, and every update seems to bring better features to the table and also further refines the operating system itself. And all throughout 2022, this phone was definitely one of my favorite devices of that year. I really like that it's a very affordable device, but despite that, it still has very capable cameras, which we'll be talking about more a little bit further on into this video. But first, I do want to kind of go over what all we get included here in the box, just to kind of refresh you in case you forgot. But here's the box the phone does come in. You can see it's a very slim box, and one reason for that is because there is no USB wall adapter included, which is a bit unfortunate. But we do get a double-sided USB-C cable for charging and data transfer, and I also appreciate that we do have a USB OTG adapter included as well. That is something that you don't really find too often in the box, with really any smartphone for that matter. Now, with every A-series phone from Google Pixel, they essentially take the design of the previous flagship and incorporate it into the device. So for this phone, it looks very similar to the Pixel 6 and Pixel 6 Pro. Having this camera bar in the back and having the triple tone as well definitely gives it kind of a cool look. And I especially like this color of the device. It kind of reminds me of a panda look. So in general, I'm a big fan of it. Now definitely take a look at the various links in the video description to see the most up-to-date pricing and availability for the Google Pixel 6a. One thing's for sure, since this phone was launched, it has received a variety of different discounts and promotions, so the price kind of always seems to be changing. That being said though, I have seen some very great deals over the last several months, especially for this phone, so most likely you will be able to get it for a fraction of the MSRP. Now with the Google Pixel 6a, we're getting a very large 6.1-inch display. Now, the display is OLED, which is excellent. That means that we're getting very great colors here, also really good viewing angles as well. It gives the phone a nice premium touch to it. Now, unfortunately, the refresh rate is limited at just 60 Hz, so no 90 Hz or 120 Hz. But despite that shortcoming, I do appreciate that the display on this device is 1080p. So in general, I have no complaints with the display overall. I feel like it looks really good. It's definitely one of the best ones out there for a mid-range device. And while there is some room for improvement, overall, I think it is perfectly adequate, and I'd imagine the majority of people out there definitely will approve of the way the display is. Now with this phone, we're getting a PPI of 429, a 20:9 aspect ratio, so a more narrow but taller form factor, and we're getting an 83% screen-to-body ratio. So I really appreciate how small the bezels are all throughout this device. I also like that it has more of a squared-off form factor. I feel like nowadays with a lot of smartphones, and especially iPhones, they're a little bit too rounded for my preference. I feel like they waste a lot of space, especially in the corners, so I really do appreciate how everything's kind of squared off here. Of course, the actual corners themselves are not perfectly squared off, but at the same time, compared to other phones that this one competes against, things are definitely a lot more squared off than the competition. Another thing too with the Pixel 6a is that we do have a hole punch for the front-facing camera, and in general, that hole punch is very small. I wish Apple would incorporate this into their devices, but I suppose they have other ideas, such as the dynamic island. But that's for a whole separate video and conversation. Now the front-facing camera on here is 8 megapixels, and definitely take a look at my full review video of the Pixel 6a to see a variety of different photo and video samples from all the various cameras on this device. But essentially, in summary, I feel like this phone offers the best photo and video quality for a phone that's offered at under $500. That's definitely saying a lot, but at the same time, this phone delivers on quite a bit. They've essentially combined AI with already great hardware to give us excellent camera performance. Now internally, with this phone, we have 128 gigabytes of storage, but unfortunately, there is no microSD card expansion. Now I am glad that we're getting that much storage, as I feel like that's a very generous amount, but just know that you won't be able to add in a microSD card. So if that's something that you're used to with your current Android device, then just know that you cannot do that here. Now there is no wireless charging with the Pixel 6a, which is a bit disappointing. That's certainly a feature that I do wish this phone had. I suppose by not having it, that does give people an extra reason to spend a little bit more and go for the 7 instead, but it would have been nice to have because I do have a lot of wireless chargers all throughout my home, and they certainly do come in handy. Now with this phone, there is no face unlock. However, we do have an in-display fingerprint sensor. So let's give that a try right now. And it is very fast and responsive. Let's try that one more time. So there we go. Definitely very reliable. Maybe not quite as fast as some of the more higher end devices, and not as fast either compared to the Pixel 7 and 7 Pro, but for what it is and for what this device is a mid-ranger, it does work very well. As you can see, 3 out of 3 times, it was able to recognize my thumbprint very quickly. Now on the back of the device, we do have a dual camera setup. So there's a 12.2 megapixel main camera and a 12 megapixel ultra wide angle camera. Now this phone does support portrait mode for both the rear and front cameras, which is definitely a great thing. Now here's how things look on the camera app on the device. This is with a standard camera right now. Then from here, we can switch over to the ultra wide angle camera to fit a lot more content into the frame. Definitely a big fan of that. We can also head over to night sight to take excellent looking nighttime photos. I know I already mentioned that I think this phone has the best cameras in its segment, but especially the night mode and night sight, that is top notch. You can take excellent looking nighttime photos that pretty much rival a flagship phone. So that's really impressive. We also have portrait mode, so you can get those blurred out backgrounds. So that's another thing too. This phone does an excellent job at portrait mode. They really have refined the AI especially to figure out how to make things look really natural, which is good. Then heading over to video, we do have ultra wide video as well as standard video. And then as far as the resolutions available, there is 1080p and then also 4K available. Now when you're in 4K, you can also do 60 FPS, which is especially impressive. Now this device features 6 gigabytes of RAM paired up with the Google Tensor processor. Now that combination is really impressive as well. This phone performs great. It's almost like flagship performance in a sense, despite this being a mid-range device. Now I did run a benchmark test using Geekbench 5, and I'll show you the scores in that test right now. But essentially, I got a single core score of 1050 and a multi-core score of 2657. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores to get a better idea of how this phone measures up to what you currently have. But I have a feeling this phone most likely will be a performance upgrade for you, as it really does perform great. Now since getting this phone, it has gotten an update to Android 13. It did start with Android 12, so it's nice to see that it did get a major Android software update, which is something that is a major selling point for Pixel phones. So this phone will also be getting Android 14, and I believe Android 15 as well. Now this device also has NFC, which is great. So you can use NFC to make mobile contactless payments using Google Pay and using Tap to Pay. So that's very convenient as well, and glad to see that here in the phone. But now that I've gone over a variety of different features and specifications with the Google Pixel 6a, let's take a closer look at the actual hardware itself. Now this phone is made of plastic on the back. However, it does have metal on the sides, and it does feel decently premium. One thing though I will say is that I have picked up quite a few hairline scratches on the display here. I did not use this phone in a case ever since getting it. I've taken this phone on a variety of different trips as well, and certainly spent a lot of quality time with it. Now, I did take my SIM out of this, and I did put it in my Pixel 7 Pro, but for a long time, I did have one of my SIMs in this device. So I was actively using this for quite a bit longer, even compared to other phones that I feature here on the channel. And the main reason for that is because of how great the cameras are. This phone has been genuinely useful to me, which is a great thing, of course. But keep in mind though that it is prone to picking up some scratches. So scratches on the display and then also some scratches on the back. But ironically, the plastic almost held up better compared to the display glass itself. Now for me, the reason why I didn't put a screen protector on the display and why I didn't put a case on the rest of the phone is because I wanted to see how this phone would actually hold up in the real world without any sort of protection anywhere. And you can see the results of that. So I do recommend, if you want to keep your device really fresh for a long period of time, definitely putting on a screen protector in case. But on the left side of the phone, we have the SIM card slot. On the right side of the phone, we have the power button, volume up and volume down. Up top here, we have the noise canceling microphone. And then on the bottom of the phone, we have the microphone, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, and speaker. So keep in mind that there is no 3.5mm headphone jack with this phone. So if you do want to use wired headphones, you will have to use an adapter. And then on the back of the phone, we have kind of a glossy finish That being said though, it doesn't really pick up a ton of fingerprints due to kind of the color configuration of this device, but in general, I feel like it's a really good looking phone for what it is. But overall, I'm a big fan of the Google Pixel 6a. You might have noticed that from everything I've said in this video. I mean, this has been a phone that I continue to use even outside of the review period just because of its general utility. I found it to be very helpful and is especially great as a second device. It's really good as a primary device too, but I tend to carry a flagship as my main device and then usually whatever I'm testing as my secondary. Or the phone that I'm testing is my primary and then I'll have another phone as my secondary, but it's kind of tough sometimes because if you're familiar with my channel, I do focus on lower end budget phones, which is a very important market for smartphones, but oftentimes I have too many apps and different things, and a lot of those phones don't have enough storage space for everything that I tend to use. But that's another whole topic that I can talk about in a separate video. But overall, this concludes my video on the Google Pixel 6a in 2023. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, definitely give it a thumbs up. But this is Kevin here, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.